but we were talking about pressing the wheat for the grapes. Okay, well, we did Yisurim Mizbeach. We got into Ma'aseh Korbanos, right? The mitzvahs. Okay, so I want to see something about an asham. I'm the Rambam talks about this. I said we're going to have a share about this. Just mention what the Rambam is understanding Malkus. The Rambam says that Malkus is really bad. Malkus means when you have a chiyuv kares, it means chiyuv Malkus. That's why the Mishneh says that those who deserve kares, but they got lashes by the Beis Din, so they're not going to get kares anymore for that sin. You familiar? The Rambam says more in Nevuchim and alludes to it in the Mishneh Torah that really there's Malkus, and Malkus is what we call kares. And there's also some other Averos that also get Malkus, but that's not the Ikar Malkus. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So a Chatos is a person did a severe sin for which he should be killed, but he was a shogeg, whatever that means, shogeg for whatever reason. So the atonement is bring a certain type of offering. Where does Asham fall on that? An Asham is a much more specific offering, a guilt offering. Chatos, you could say he's sinned. It's from the Shoresh tet aleph, but sometimes there's a dot in the tet, as in the word chatas itself, which means a type of purification, right? L'chate means to purify. So hold on 1 second. Someone else is here. Is it my daughter? It's weird. Okay. So I'm not so clear where the asham falls onto this, but the asham is for very specific sins. There's only like a few sins. This is the heater, by the way. Yeah. So there's a group of sins for which a person has to bring a korban asham. God willing, we'll have time to talk about this. Explain what makes something an asham. Why those specific averos? Familiar? There's asham be'ilos, asham gazels, really severe sins that a person actually does, not necessarily b'shogeg. It's not the same standard as a chatos. And the Rambam is going to explain some Chicago's. And the other thing I said that perhaps we're going to jump around. This is relevant for you, David. We're learning Hilchos paraduma, tumas meis. That talks about being contaminated with tuma, right? All the different ways. We're already been contaminated. I think you've all been to funerals or whatever. You've all, maybe even some of you have done burials and things like that, right? Has anybody had first-hand experience? So you have the next set of you've never been to a funeral? Thank God. Thank God. Have you been to the cemetery? I've been. Okay. Have you been matame at a cemetery? If you just stay away from the graves. Okay, so you got tummy. Or you've been in the same room as maybe a mace. The point is, we're all tummy now. Maybe we should learn Hilchos paraduma, which tells you how to purify oneself. That's more relevant for us, because all the different ways of getting tummy, that's for Kohen to know and for us to avoid. But Lamaisa, you've gotten tummy already, so it's better to learn Hilchos paraduma, how to purify, because that's what we need. We only have, let's say, a week left until Passover, right? It means it's already too late. If you want to do Korban Pesach and you want to start your process now, Bitara, you couldn't. Okay, so there's not much time. Which mitzvah did we get up to? Yaakov, do you remember? Okay. So let's just make a note of this. Come on, let's go through it from the top. Here's the mitzvahs. There's 23 of them, right? Eser mitzvot aseh u'shlosh esrei mitzvot lo taseh. There's 10 thou shalts and 13 thou shalt nots. Here's the rundown. La'asot ha'olah k'ma'aseha kaktuvim al haseder. You have to do it the exact order. The olah is the burnt offering. We said before. Why Arch will translate that as an elevation offering. We mentioned the old translations of such a word. Remember? They used to call it a holocaust. Before the Holocaust, they called it a holocaust. Holocaust means entirely burnt by the fire, or entirely burnt in fire. And Elie Wiesel, I think, was the one who termed the Holocaust when he described it as being poetic. So that term stuck. Beforehand, they referred to it as what? What Hitler referred to it as, the final solution.
The Holocaust, it's like Korban.
Yeah. Well, Korban entirely burned. Yeah. And then have you read Night?
Yeah.
Told that Night isn't exactly, there's some things that are a little bit embellished there. Okay, Night. I remember reading Night as a child because they used to give it out, and then they had a renaissance. So there, Elie Wiesel describes certain things, but I'm told that the English translation is a little bit made nicer, and the original, I think German, whatever it is a lot more harsher and stuff about also Jewish reprisals and retribution afterward that he describes were removed from the English edition or were softened. Okay, so that's what it is. Shalol echol b'sar olah. So you shouldn't eat. It's a isra say to eat the meat of the burnt offering. Seder achatos, that's a mitzvah. A person should not eat from the inner chatos. What's a chatos pnimith? Chatath pnimith. Regular chatath is kache kachim. That means it's the most holy sacrifice. Most of the meat is eaten by the kohanim. That's part of the atoning process. As a person, I was supposed to speak to him last night after Mar if he had a question about this, but I had to run to go buy my matzah flour, and then on the way out, I started saying Kriyas Shema with its brachas because we daven Marv too early, and I missed him, and he wanted to know the answer to this question. The chatos has to be eaten in the azara. Chatos cannot be removed from the azara. The kohanim eat apparently in a standing position because you're not allowed to sit in the azara. Okay, and then we saw that there's an illustration we have in one of these Beis Hamikdash books. Apparently, maybe there's a place that somehow was kedusha of azara, but because it was indoors, so they could sit down there, and that's where the kohanim sat and ate. Very not clear. And the chatas meat that was removed from the azara is what? Invalidated. So that they had to eat it by force. They had to eat it within the azara. Fine. So the chatath pinimith, an internal chatath, doesn't mean within the temple. It means they actually put the blood. They applied it within the Beis Hamikdash itself, on the inner altar, the altar of the incense, and the something they sprinkle like on Yom Kippur, they sprinkle the blood onto the kapores, right, and in front of the aron, or just in the Holy of Holies on the floor. So that's a chatath pnimith. That's done when if it's brought on behalf of the entire nation, like on Yom Kippur, or if a whole tribe at least does a sin. It could be par helam davar, or the other one that's the goat for everybody. We're going to see. There's every sin. There's a sin for. There's the sin, like I said, par helam davar, which means what? The Sanhedrin, what?
Really forgot those
Yeah,
things.
or something they ruled a heter, and everybody listens to the heter for a general sin that's maybe Shabbos even, or Arias or something. But for Avodah Zarah, it's a different korban. If they ruled and they mattered some sort of Avodah Zarah, there's a different sacrifice. So those are what are called chatath pnimith. And in all those cases, the meat is not eaten by the kohanim. The meat is eventually disposed of. It's burned. Okay, so that's what it says here. That kind of chatath not eaten. The regular chatas of Yom Kippur, just like all the other moadim, is actually eaten by the kohanim, but not in Yom Kippur. After Yom Kippur. Because they can't eat on Yom Kippur. So the meat of most kachi kachim, there's more than just that very day. There's also the subsequent night, sometimes the next day even, depending on the korban, right?
Oh, right. So the Pesach is not the only thing that you offer it, but then don't eat it for some time.
Yeah. Also the chatas, the stam of the moed of Yom Kippur is also apparently eaten after Yom Kippur.
Right.
Yeah. So, and everything.
Anything else that's like that? You
What?
offer it and then wait.
Not that I know of. I don't know. I have to see.
Pesach and
What's the question?
So,
Breakfast of roasted goat. Yeah. So it's literally they break their fast on the chatas, and I guess also if there were fast days also, for whatever reason. So if there was a chatas that day, so the kohanim would wait until night. So something said kadshu tzom. There's two places I know of, at least in Tanakh, it's written in Sefer Yirmiyahu and Sefer Divrei Yamim, of fast days declared in First Temple times for emergencies. They gathered in the temple to pray, and everybody was fasting. So if there was a chatas brought in that day, so they'd eat it that night. Okay, but in this case, the chatath pinimith is not eaten at all. So there's certain chatoth like that. Shalei avdil the chatath oath. The kohen shouldn't entirely separate the bird offering, the chatas of oath. What does that mean? So there's a shisal tobich b'chnafav lo yavdil. He divides it open. He rips it open down the middle, but he shouldn't entirely break it apart. The bird part into two. Okay, you guys have seen how to do this to a bird. Anybody ever do a malika, practice malika? Maybe you have a kohen who has a long nail. Okay, so you have to do molek and you have to squish out the blood onto nimtzad demol kiram mizbeach and then open it up. It's a whole thing. So there are people learn how to do this to pigeons and turtle doves. Seder ha'asham. Then the next mitzvah is how to make a asham offering. That's a guilt offering. She'ochlu hakonim besar kodesh kodeshim b'mikdash. The kohanim should eat the meat of the kodesh kodeshim in the mikdash. That's a mitzvah, I say. Shelo yochelim chutz la'azara, and they should not eat it outside of the azara. The lo taseh. They have to keep the meat inside the azara. Shelo yochar zar mi kodshei kodeshim. Non-kohen, that's a zar, should not eat of the most holy sacrifices. Seder Ashlamim, how to make a peace, so-called peace offering. Although I really don't like that translation, but what are you going to do? That's what Chazal say, makes peace with everybody. But Shlamim is the plural of either one of two Hebrew words, of which I have never seen. Either Shalem or Shalom, with kamatzes. Shalem is there, but the plural of Shalem is Shlemim. And it's an adjective. Shalem means complete, and it's a few times in the Torah, Shalem. So Shlemim, Shlemim Heimi Tanu. Yaakov came to Shechem Shalem, and then the Shechemites said about Yaakov's family, Shlemim Heimi Tanu. So Shlamim is the plural of Shalem or Shalom, and I don't know what that is. What are you looking? Okay, so either way, it's the offering that everybody gets to eat. And there's an avera, it's a prohibition to eat the meat of the least holy sacrifices before the blood is thrown on the altar. That's very important. Sometimes it could take a while if the Kohen's walking slow, so the blood hasn't gotten to the altar yet. Normally it's not the case, but who knows, maybe because they're very quick with there's a lot of sacrifices happening. It's Korban Pesach time. I don't know, whatever it is. Even Korban Pesach, no, you'd probably get to eat in Korban Pesach well after they throw the blood. By the way, sometimes the blood was delayed. Why is it the Rambam says here to do every mincha exactly as the Seder says in the Torah, but he didn't say about the Asham? So it said, Laso kol Asham kaseder ma'asav haktuvim b'Torah. Why don't you write that also? By the way, there's a mitzvah to do the mincha exactly as it is. There's a few types of minchas, right? Different ways you bake it. It's in this week's parsha, at least according to the annual cycle, right? How do you make a mincha? You can bake it. Use a lot of oil and some warm water and some frankincense, which gets burned on the mizbeach. Some fine flour, as we said, it's not fine flour in our case. It means actually coarse flour, but the with the husks removed. You know what I'm talking about? It's like basically couscous like thing. So they sell it here. Solet. It's basically a farina. But
Unclus translates
Shlamim
as
Nichsat. So Kudshaya in this case it means slaughtered for kachim. It means the kachim you're going to eat. Okay, Nichsat means slaughtered. And Zevach Hashlamim. That's sometimes the translation of Zevach Shlamim. Nichsat Zevach. Lizbolach is another word for Lishchot. And so I don't know. I don't know where that word comes from etymologically in Hebrew. Like I said, I've never seen the singular of it. But Chazal said it's about giving everybody a piece. Some for the altar, some for the Kohanim, some for everybody. So it makes peace.
And I mean, Chazal rarely tell us word etymologies. Usually, if anything, they're trying to teach us something additional.
Yeah.
Talk us something that's not what it is.
Yes. This came up also in Chutz La'aretz. There was a young man who argued something like, "How do you know that's what it means?" I said, "Because that's what it means. If you knew Hebrew, one of the disadvantage of learning in America is that it's not your native language. So you have to. A lot of Israelis wouldn't ask that question that he asked. I said, if you'd been in Israel, you're a native Hebrew speaker, you would not have asked such a question, because that's what the word means.
Same way you don't know if it's not for bad, it's bad.
Israelis assume what the word means.
Yeah.
They don't realize.
Okay, but a lot of times it does. And then I realized, that's also teaching people proper pronunciation. Someone could ask, just like all these things. Every time I encountered something, it's more like, are you sure that's the way? That's not what we do. That's not the Masorah. One guy caught me because I'm busy trying to do Haggadah Pesach. I tell people, if we offer Korban Pesach, Lubavitcher Rebbe's problem. If you were in Eretz Yisrael, or in Jerusalem, when it's time to offer Korban Pesach, you'll be Chayav Kares, so get out of Jerusalem. Why? Because they might give a green light. And then they told him, but they're red lighting it. They're all on Usim anyway. So he's like, okay, so you can stay in Jerusalem for Pesach. Tell people, it says basically that if you don't get ready for Korban Pesach and then it happens, you'll be Chayav Kares. He says, where does it say that? I don't see it in Shulchan Aruch. You're telling people that. Can you show me where it says that? I told him it's a bunch of Mishnayos. It says Mishahaya. Talks about a person who's mazid and a person who doesn't do Korban Pesach b'mazid. How do you not do Korban Pesach b'mazid? It means you're in Jerusalem, it's Korban Pesach time, and you didn't do it. So I had an excuse last year, they didn't let me do it. But if you were given the green light, the gates are suddenly removed. This is what I was telling the people in Migdal right before we left. Two guys were jumping on me, it's a politics and all that. What are you, a right-winger? Trying to say, you agree that one day... No, it's fine. It's not full of it. Just two guys asked a good question. I explained to them. The impediment will be removed, whatever that impediment is. The second the impediment will be removed, you have no excuse. So there's someone who didn't understand. I'm trying to tell you, no, this is what the Mishnah means when it says mazid. That's how the Rambam paskins. You have to do an effort because that's what it means. And a mazid in this case is someone who didn't try. So I'm just saying, it came up, and I said another example. How do you know the tet and the tough and all that? And how do you know the tough doesn't sound like that? I said because It's Torah Shebal Peh that's been written down. As a matter of fact, it's Torah Shebichsav all along. How do you know this? Someone said, my Medic tradition all the way. Just go with what you've always been doing. I said, no, we're also text-based. Sometimes the text openly contradicts what the record we have from Chazal says, do X, Y, and Z. Someone said, yeah, but I have a tradition of my father. I do ABC. My eyes don't lie to me. I see my father does ABC, and his father did ABC. So isn't that as strong as any tradition? I said, sometimes no. That's why Chazal wrote it down. They bring out the shtar. This is what you're supposed to do. So I said, look at this. How do I know the tough is pronounced the way it is? Because that's a tough. It's not a samich on the page. It's not a sin. It's a tough. So it has its own sound.
And we know that the kamatska katan doesn't exist because it's just the comments on the page.
Okay. It's just the comments. Okay. And like Rabbi Soloveitchik explained, if you're pronouncing your comments properly, so sometimes it is accent in the syllable and sometimes not. There is a difference between segol and serei. They did make a difference. Sometimes it's segol and sometimes it's serei. Yeah. So there's three sounds: kolam, kamatz, and patach. Fine. Good proof. There's a very good proof to that position. What about chataf kamatz? Ooh, chataf kamatz, yeah, and chataf patach and chataf segol. But it's a type of segol, it's a type of kamatz. You have to understand what the difference is. Okay. The point is, we know what we're supposed to do. There is positive tradition, there's negative tradition, and not everything can be like just follow along what you've always been doing. And sometimes we have to get back to studying these things and know when Chazal wrote it down, it's because they wanted to. Why do you write down a shtar? Why do we have a shtar? Just Edom are good enough. Sometimes the Edom aren't there. So what is it? Well, Rabbi Soloveitchik's definition of what's a shtar, Edus b'chsav. The Rambam wrote down these halachas for us as part of the, he explains why you write down Torah Shebal Peh. Take your notes. So I'm pretty confident if the Rambam wrote this and now we're doing differently and he's pretty much basing it on Shas, we have to get back to what we're doing. Okay.
Wait, can we go back to saying about what Chazal said the meaning of a word? Was it the shlamim, or like why it's called that?
Well, in this case, I'm just bringing this up as an example. I don't know why it's called shlamim. Chazal said shlamim makes shalom between everybody. That's Chazal's teaching about shlamim.
Right.
But I've never seen an analysis of the word grammatically. Why is it called shlamim?
Right.
And like I said, it's a plural of something, of a word I've never seen, a shalom or a shalom. If you have a word like any word that's of that mishkal, it's a seglet noun, like kesef. What's the plural of kesef? Ksafim. And what's the other words that have kamatz? What?
Karen.
What? Karim is also kramim. Okay, but those are seglet nouns. There's no other form that's kamatz. What is it? Nachash. What's the plural of nachash? Nechashim. Okay, so that's the plural. And you have words like, it's very interesting. You take certain words, you feminize them, and sometimes it's just it's two syllables. Sometimes it's a shava and two syllables. Give an example. Yaled and yalda, melech malka. Okay, so those are plural. And then you have words like tzedakah and bracha. Bracha is apparently a feminine form of berech. It's not birka, it's bracha, and it's not tzidka as the feminine of tzedek. It's tzedakah. But in the smichut, they do go take those forms. What's the smichut of tzedakah? Tzidkat. And the smichut of bracha is birkat. And suddenly it goes back into that form. Sometimes it's just two syllables, yalda. Sometimes there's a shava before the two syllables. Okay. Like I said, I don't have any clarity on where this word came from or why it means what it means. Like you said, nichsat kudshaya. So kudshim, shlamim is a type of kudshim. I don't know. So hopefully we'll have some answer to that. But like I said, I encountered in America this argument a few times, like, how do you know this is the way it's supposed to be? I said, because you just open up the book. And someone says, how do you know like that? I said, because that's what the word means. So it was actually a good guy with him to argue back in yeshiva. We had because he wanted to try to beat me a point, he actually, I don't think he won, but he accidentally got me to look at something that I showed Leon. It actually proves it. There's a Yerushalmi Mefurash where the voice of the Yerushalmi, the narrator, in explaining Rabbi Meir's opinion, says that Techshach is Shkia. Techshach is Shkia. I've been trying to tell people that's Pshat Narvei Pesachim forever. And the idea that, no, Techshach means Seis is a little bit of a later Chumrah of Tosfos. that caught on? You're skeptical?
Hold on a second. I was actually thinking about this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because there's a really weird Rashi where one of the earliest times in Brachot where Shkia is stated explicitly,
Mhm.
Rashi says Hashecha,
Yeah.
and like everyone blows up on that.
Well, he
Rashi.
shouldn't, because in the Rambam is implying all over the place that Tershach and Chashecha is the same thing, and it's talking about sundown and not Seis. Oh, Yoni writes, in Latin there are words called pluralia, like plural, pluralia tantum, which admit only plural form. May that be the case for shlomim? It could be. B'nai pilagshim. B'nai pilagshim, it means a woman from a child of this type of union, even if a person doesn't have multiple pilagshim. Okay? B'nai ta'aruvot, or eshet ni'urim. Okay? The wife of his youth. Ni'urim is a person's youth. That's a plural. Bachurav, his bacherhood. Okay? A woman in her bitulav, in her maidenhood. Okay? Those are all plurals that could be the case. Yes, it could, Yoni, you're correct. But then again, what?
Are also
Yeah, Mayim is also one of those plurals. Shemayim and Mayim. There are dual forms, at least doesn't true plural, but still, but you don't have a singular thereof. Yes, I know. So very good. That's an example. My question is, so well, what does it mean? Okay. Okay, good. So now we're getting somewhere. Thank you for sharing that. What?
I can check my BDB when I get back.
Your BDB? Okay, fine.
BDB. It's a etymological lexicon for.
Yeah. Okay. See, he's prepared. You should carry a thing, unless it's really big. You should carry a thing like that around like a pocket knife. It's sounds pretty useful. They don't have it online.
No.
Okay.
Maybe.
Well, every now and then you see a
University textbook.
You're-
They try to sell them as much as
more than a decade ago, finding Jastro, the exact dictionary online, and accessible, and you could search it, even though it's like the same print, like it's done very well. That was like, wow. And then the Aryeh Kaplan Chumash, also great things to have. And there's more and more resources online. Ashreinu, okay, it's very easy for us to pretend to be scholars with all the tools we have in front of us. Okay, next, mincha. Shelo yasim shemen al minchat chotei. There are certain people who have to bring meal offerings. They're considered sinners, so they don't get to put oil on it. Shelo yitain aleha levona, and also sinners shouldn't put the frankincense on their. That's some sort of fragrance spice. I don't know what it smells like specifically, but it was common back then. They can't put it on their mincha. Shelo te'achil mincha kohen. Kohen who brings a mincha doesn't get eaten. Normally, a mincha that a regular Jew brings, what happens to it? It's mostly eaten by the Kohanim. But a Kohen brings a mincha, that's entirely burned. Shlo te'afem minchat chametz. So it also says that a mincha should not be baked in a chametz form. Because they have to make sure the dough doesn't leaven before they bake it or fry it, as it may be. Many minachot are fried. As we pointed out, the minachot describe a dough that's basically a bread dough that could be baked or could be fried, and they're deep fried. And the Tosefta says that the bracha on eating such a thing is hamotzi, which means that deep fried doughs are a type of pas, which means if you deep fry your jelly donut, it's a type of pas. It's possible to kisanin. So it's not a tavshil. Gavriel pointed out that perhaps maybe they didn't say this bracha. Maybe birkos mitzvah are post temple. So yeah, that's a very interesting claim that someone has made. So they're saying when the temple will be rebuilt, the person will make such a bracha. Fine, but still, that opinion says that it's basically bread. All the menachot are bread. A mitzvah for the Kohanim to eat shari menachot means the part of the mincha that's left over. Really, it's most of it. There's a kometz of the mincha that's thrown onto the fire. The rest of the mincha, which is basically an asiris ha'efa, which is a large quantity of flour, that's actually used to make bread for the Kohanim. Shevi Adam kol nidarav v'nidvotav baregel sheparabo rishon. A person has a mitzvah to bring all of his voluntary sacrifices. Neder and nedava. What's a neder? A person volunteers, I will bring an olah somehow. So it doesn't matter how, he has to bring an olah. Nedava is saying this specific thing will be a korban. Nafkamina, if this animal dies on its own somehow, it's struck by lightning, so now he's off the hook because this animal's supposed to be a korban, now it's gone. So he doesn't have to bring it. But he said, I got to bring an olah, so he's got to bring an olah no matter what. If he says an animal, this is going to be the animal that's going to help me fulfill that vow, and then the animal dies, he still has to find some other way. It's called achrayas. He still has to find another animal. And the mitzvah is to do this at the regel, the first one that encounters him. That means not to delay. Bal ta'achir is an avera. So the mitzvah is for him the first regel. That's the first time he's going to the temple, usually. So he should bring it by that first holiday. And the regel, by the way, means it excludes what? Which holidays are excluded from regel? Yeah, it means the actual regalim, not Rosh Hashanah, not Yom Kippur, not Chol Moed. Not Rosh Chodesh, Chol Moed, yes, because that's part of a regel, and certainly not Purim or Hanukkah or Yom Ha'atzmaut, as it may be. Shlo yacher nidro v'nidvatho ushar dvarim shehu chayav bahem, and it's a bal tacher is an averot. He should not delay bringing everything that he has to bring. Akriv kol korbanot beveit habechira, to bring all the korbanot to the house that God has chosen. Once again, every now and then the Rambam calls the Beis Hamikdash Beis Bechira. Why? Because when it says bring your korbanos there, what does God call the place? Asher Yivchar Hashem. When it talks about bringing bikurim, it's called Beis Hashem Elokecha. Or in other places called actually Mikdash. There's certain things you bring to Mikdash, there's certain things you bring to Beis Hashem, and there's certain things you bring to the place God shall choose. So when Rambam's talking about the mitzvahs, that the lashon in the Torah was the place that God shall choose, so he uses the word Beis Bechira. Lavi kodshe chutza laaretz levesa bechira, to bring kodshim from chutz laaretz to the Beis Bechira also. If you have somehow a person dedicated a korban, I don't know, he was in New York or in California, so he has to make sure to bring it to the Beis Hamikdash. Shelo yishchot korbanot chutz laazara, an isser to slaughter korbanot outside the azara, and shelo lakriv korban chutz laazara, not to bring a korban outside the azara. What's to bring it in this case?
To do kapalot.
Well, no, it means to burn it on an altar. So there's two affairs. If a person were to, let's say, build an altar in Kochav Yaakov mistakenly, and he's not a Gentile, and he would then take a lamb and slaughter it here, that'd be one avera. And then putting the pieces of the lamb on the fire on the altar, that'd be the second avera. That's the hakrava. Make sense?
Should have done that. Right.
And it's, by the way, the azara. You can't even do this in Harabayas. Even in Ezras Nashim, this is an isser. It has to be exactly in the azara. How does it say? There's no word in the Torah that says bring it to chatzar ol moed. It says vel petach ol moed. Every time it says petach ol moed, mizbeach and petach ol moed. Well, what do you mean? The mizbeach is opposite the opening. No, it means it has to be in the chatzar.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Question.
Please.
The Kodesh Kodeshim was slaughtered in the northern parts.
Okay.
Is that not a Torah commandment at all?
What? Right, but
like which one is it? Because here it just says Shelo Yishchot Korban Chutz Zara, which applies to anything, all the korbanos.
Yeah, but that could be
Like it doesn't say
so
anything.
that's just a halacha. The Rambam would say that that's a halacha that kachim have to be on the north side. Okay, have to be on the north side, but it doesn't say you have to. Apparently, the way the Rambam counts it, the lashon isn't like that.
So if it's not, so that was just like a matter of custom or something.
No, it's a halacha of the Torah. It's
not listed.
It's not listed. Yeah, there's a lot of halachas that don't count as a mitzvah.
Oh, he has specific rules on it.
Yeah, so we're gonna see, where does it say that Machon Shilo? Okay, so if we jump to the fifth parak over here, okay, we're not there yet. Obviously, we have to learn the first few parakim. Okay, mitzvahs kahuna. Where does it say? Like I just read to you. Okay, quote that pasuk. Okay, and he says, but it's not a mitzvah. This is where it has to be slaughtered. So we already said the way the Rambam counts it.
Oh, it's included.
So it's included in it. So the Rambam says this whole thing is sefer mitzvahs. By the way, I would imagine there were Gaonim who did count this as a separate mitzvah, like you say. But the Rambam throughout sefer mitzvahs, have you read the Hakdama for sefer mitzvahs? It's half the book. And there, the Rambam is describing how I count the mitzvahs. He gives you all these rules how to count the mitzvahs because he disagreed with the Bahag and the Smag and everybody else who had previously counted the mitzvahs.
Right.
And then the Rambam does in his count, when he tells you a mitzvah, he's like, so why do I count it as one mitzvah? Why do I count this as two mitzvahs? Why do I count this asay and the little asay? Throughout the book, he's explaining to you all these things. He could have asked Akasha, and sometimes, by the way, they don't hold up. A lot of people a lot of people, a lot of Gonim, a lot of Rishonim, and Achronim have challenged the Rambam's trying to weasel. I shouldn't say those words. The Rambam argues for why he has his count and tries to even explain himself along the way, and others don't accept what the Rambam has to say. Who's the biggest ones who don't accept what the Rambam says in his whole count? Ramban, of course. Ramban, the biggest challenger. Rashi says this, Ramban says that. Rambam says that. So Ramban didn't exactly agree with the Rambam count. Okay, let's hide the food or whatever remains of the food so we don't get into like whatever, put it back into the bag, pretend it wasn't here. Okay, cap it, and the bowls and plates. Okay, Shmuel, click the red thing to turn on the heater. Getting cold in the legs here. Okay, getting cold in my old age.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, there's
so
a lot
there
of
you go.
other weird things. Oh, wait.
So you asked a good question. So you see that the way the Rambam has it in the fifth parak, apparently that's what the Rambam's getting at. That it has a very specific order. Okay,
I know
Yeah.
that because I read Korbanot.
Okay. Good. So you're familiar with that line. When you read Korban Tamid, the parshas, put it away quickly. Put it away.
That's too encouraging.
Korban Tamid is taken from where? Is taken from Parshas Pinchas. But you notice in a lot of sitters, it has this line, "V'shachado tel yarech hamizbeach tzafon Hashem," because talking about that pasuk, "V'shachado tel" was talking about making an olah of a keves, right? And the Talmud is an olah of a keves. It means a burnt offering made from a lamb. So they throw that line in there that it should be slaughtered on the north side of the temple.
Yeah, the Shulchan Aruch says that you should say that right after the parsha of Akedah because it's supposed to it's like a good juxtaposition or something.
Okay, well, I was talking about in Parshas Tamid in my art school sitter,
Right.
Which is the official edition of the sitter. Yeah, so but there's a lot of art school sitters, by the way.
No, I mean the psukim with Shachad Otso is like right
in the attached to the Akedah, but I was talking about What?
Art school is the official sitter.
No, I'm joking. I don't use art schools.
They have that
You
Not sure why they say Matov right before.
You know what I didn't see a lot, and this was bothering me every time a question came up. I think I told some guys who were contacting me, said I didn't bring all of my Korean and Makbili Rambams with me, and because you could find a Yad Pshuta and a Rav Kappa on the Rambam. And I went back to Schuler, just the base medrash, Batei Medrash where I was. It's like they have a Vilna Rambam. And it helps, Kesef Mishneh is there. That's nothing to sneeze at. But even just a Frankel. So I found the Frankel. That's good.
Oh, for this kind of this section, those are not as helpful.
Yeah. So where's my Makbili? Where's my Korean? Okay. So it was very difficult being in Chutz La'aretz, not schlepping around all these farm. And so thank God we're back. Hard to learn on a plane.
They have the Makbili. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, the Makbili is an app.
Yeah.
With this paper.
How much does it cost?
I don't know. I didn't check, but I know that Sefer Ramadan is free.
Oh, okay. Well, so it has a cost. Okay. Whatever. It's very hard to read, and I wish I had a better ability on the plane. The plane makes you dizzy. So I don't know how people travel so much.
I better get used to
it. What?
I better get used to it. 7 hours.
Yeah. Next. Kol HaKorbanot shel minin nefesh chaya ba'in mechamisha minin bilvad. The Rambam explains this also in his Parsha Mishnayos. There's only 5 animals that you can use to make a korban, right? The 5 animals that Avraham Avinu was told to take. So those are them. From the bakar. Bakar means bovine, bulls and cows, and they're young. Minak kvasim, and from sheep. Kvasim covers a lot. There's all different examples. Rambam's going to say like different ages tells you different kind. Okay, and umin ha'izim, and from goats. Umina torim, and from pigeons. That's torim, and bnei ona. Those are turtle doves. Nowadays they call pigeons modern Hebrew yonim for some reason. It always confuses me. Are you confused by that?
Yeah.
Yonah is a dove.
Yonot, right?
No, yonim.
Yonim. Yeah,
and Yonah is often a masculine form. That's why the prophet is also masculine.
No, but there's the plural and the singular don't always relate so well.
Yes. And what's a tor in Aramaic? Tor in Hebrew is a type of bird. What's a tor in Aramaic?
Sure.
An ox. Yeah, sure. And also same thing in Arabic. Abu Tar, or Abu Tar, is who? A guy who apparently rode an ox. Just like Abu Basal was the guy who used to sell onions. Okay. V'chol HaKorbanot bein shel tzibur bein shel yachid arba'a minin. And all the korbanot of the tzibur and of the yachid are 4 types. Olah, that means a completely burnt offering. Chatath, sin offering, Asham, guilt offering, for lack of a better word, and Shlamim, peace offerings. Peace offering means that regular people get to eat them. Those are the four major types. And a Yachid has three more that he can bring. Pesach, which is not exactly a Shlamim. Pesach has a lot in common with the Shlamim, that is eaten. But the Pesach, you don't really give a piece to the Kohen, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? The entrails and the forbidden fat and the blood are put on the altar, but the rest of the meat is taken by the people of Menuyim. Once again, another example of Pesach is different. It turns everybody into Kohen. No one can say, oh, I'm the Kohen, I deserve this piece of the Korban, because everybody's a Kohen. And the Bechor. A Bechor is not exactly a Shlamim. A Bechor is a firstborn animal. And a Bechor, by the way, doesn't necessarily become a Korban. Why? What happens to the Bechor? Sometimes it develops a mum, and then it's eaten in a different way. It's similar to Chulin, but not exactly Chulin. And the Meiser. Meiser is a person supposed to hem in all his animals who were born within a certain time. You know, within this block of time, there's a cutoff date, and all the animals are put in the pen, and you count every animal as it goes out, and every 10th one gets marked red, and that is a Meiser Korban. Okay. Then, like I said, there was that leftist guy who masquerades as a rabbi, the biggest false prophet of our times, who claimed falsely when Rosh Chodesh Elul came around, he's a tree hugger. Mm-hmm. Okay, so he said that, don't you know that today's a classic Jewish holiday? It's the Rosh Hashanah for animals. Rosh Hashanah Liv Heimot. In the olden days, people used to use this time to think about the animals. You know, animals are people too, type of shtick. So he's right, except he's dead wrong. Why? Mm-hmm. Because it's one Mishneh in Rosh Hashanah. It says Rosh Hashanah L'Maiser Behemoths. Okay, that's it. It's Meiser Behemoths, the one animals that get tied and end up being slaughtered and eaten. Okay. Next, he's wrong because, like the Rambam and others point out, that's the Stam Mishneh in Rosh Hashanah. But we hold, like the Chachamim in Bechoros, who say that the Rosh Hashanah for Behemoths, Meiser Behemoths, is actually Rosh Chodesh Tishrei, just like everything else. There's a Das Yochid that says it's Elul. So the halacha didn't hold this way. And also, it doesn't mean you celebrate the animals, or it's a time for, recognize the animals. Also, like I said, you eat it. But other than that, never let the halachic facts get in the way of, scoring points with your friends on your color war friends. Basically, he's color war blue, so he has to write something that fits color war blue, right? He's on the blue team. So, either way, he's wrong. Okay, next. So those are things. What are the things that Korbanos that everybody, Tzibur and Yachid could do? Ola, Chatas, Asham, Shlamim. And the Yachid also has a Pesach Bechor Meiser. There's no Pesach Bechor Meiser of the Tzibur. But there is an Ola of the Tzibur. What's an Ola of the Tzibur? No, Ola of the Tzibur. No, Tamid. Most of the Korbanos on the Moadim, like the Rambam says, on a Rosh Chodesh, you have two kvasim, and then you throw in another two bulls, 2 rams, another 7 lambs, and a he-goat as a sin offering. So that brings up, if you're keeping counts, like 14 animals, whatever it is, it adds up to a lot of animals. Now they're all olot, except for that one he-goat as a sin offering. And then sometimes you have korban shlamim of the tzibur, for example, on Shavuos. Okay, and that tzibur has an asham also. Okay, so we'll see that.
Who eats the korban shlamim of the tzibur?
It's going to see that the Kohanim. Okay, it's also the Kohanim. That's a shlamim. Kol korbanot tzibur hein ola o chatat. All the korbanot tzibur are either ola or chatot. Vein korbanot tzibur shlamim. There you go. That's the answer. There's no korbanot tzibur shlamim chutz mishnei kvasim abaim lecha tufa batzeret. Just those 2, like we mentioned. Okay. The shlamim of the tzibur. What's the shlamim of the tzibur? What those two lambs that they bring on the atzeret with the lechem. Vein hanikrim zivchei shalmei tzibur. Vein tzibur makriven asham lulam velo of. And there's never an asham of the tzibur. Below oath, and neither does the tzibur ever bring a bird. That's why you read in Pinchas, Parshas Pinchas, there's never any birds offered, or the Avod of Yom Kippur. There's no birds. Okay, it's all the 3 types of mammals, large animals.
Aren't the birds just people?
Yeah, so apparently only Yechidim bring birds. Korbanot tzibur hein shnei tmidin. I have no notes here. Kol yom umusfei shabbatot rashi chodshim v'amoadot. The korbanot tzibur are the 2 tmidim every day. Those are 2 lambs. Umusfei shabbatot, the offerings of Shabbos, the additional offerings. What's Shabbos's offering? Exactly, just double the tamid. Okay, so yeah, when you think about it, the Shabbos. How many psukim describe the musaf of Shabbos? 2 psukim. It basically means Shabbos Shabbos means double the Tamid. So you have one lamb in the morning, one lamb in the afternoon, so you have two more lambs in the middle of the day. Exactly the same way. The Rambam barely mentions Musaf of Shabbos. In Tamidim and Musafim, it's almost glosses over it.
Number of things on Shabbos that are doubled.
Yeah. So a lot of things on Shabbos, just like that's where Lechem Mishneh comes from. I was pointing out to people. People say Lechem Mishneh is Zecher Laman, that was double. No, then that means Lechem Mishneh of the Mon is on Friday they got double. Friday's portion, Shabbos' portion. Lamais on Shabbos, they had the exact portion that they had on Friday.
This earlier.
Yeah.
I was saying this earlier. So.
Yeah. So the fact that you're supposed to double up your food on Shabbos seems to be, just like God says, Korbani Lachmi, and on God's table is the Mizbeach, and his lechem on his table is double on Shabbos, so too yours should be double. And on Yontif, God takes a lot more on his table, right? So on Yontif, you have a lot more on your table, not just double. Well, yeah. Yeah, God, it's the Sukkot is the biggest party of the year. Okay. Next. Rosh Chodashim. There's Musfei Shabbos, Rosh Chodashim, Mo'adoth. What's the Mo'adoth? Those are the holidays, including Chol Moed. Usir Chatav Shel Yom Kippurim. Okay, those are Korbanot Tzibur. The Sir Chatas of Yom Kippurim are all those are the Tzibur. V'cheinim shakagu beidin v'oruba avodah zarah. If the Beis Din makes a big mistake, they were supposed to. We inadvertently we've mattered an asurim we shouldn't have. V'oruba avodah zarah, and they ruled in they actually instructed people. Lahorot means to rule and to instruct. Okay, Torah's instruction basically told people they could do avodah zarah. By the way, if the Beis Din decided this, how is it that eventually they came to the conclusion they were wrong because they took a vote originally? Well, not that. No, it has to be the same Beis Din if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So what happens is, it's a teku. Okay, fine.
I remember in Sefer they say, if there's a Beit Din and then they die, and then a new Beit Din comes, and then there's different times.
So let's talk about the ideal case. Let's talk about ideal case. They correct their mistake within 3 years. So how did they come to the conclusion that they were wrong?
So they just came
No, and they believed him. No, it means that there was a vicious debate in the Beis Din. The vote to permit was basically 45 to 26, right? And one of those 26 was saying, I know that I'm wrong, and I'm going to go along with what the Beis Din said, but I really think the Beis Din's wrong on this one. I'm going to continue arguing this. So if he goes against the Beis Din in practice, he's a Zakin Mamri, and they have to kill him, right? So how does he avoid getting killed?
Only if he is mored.
Yeah, he's mored. That means instruct people to go against what he says.
But it doesn't he himself. Isn't he supposed to if he knows?
So if the Beis Din is ruled and the Beis Din is ruled against him, he's a minority. He can continue arguing his position. He has to, in practice, go along with what they're saying, but he can argue against what they're saying, just like he always argued all along. And hopefully, maybe he'll win, and eventually he'll win the vote. And then they realize, so we were wrong all along. Now we have to bring this korban. So there's a fine line between killing the Zakin Mamre for arguing against the Beis Din because he's arguing and doing against them, and just arguing and eventually convincing them of the rightness of his position. Then they're admitting that they were mistaken in having to bring this korban. Yeah.
I'm not sure if he's supposed to go with the Beit Din because in the Memorial, so talks about a case where somebody knows the Beit Din is wrong.
No, I'm saying he instructs. So he instructs others, saying if he's like the secret.
Himself have to follow his own rule if he knows he's right.
No, that's a good question. What about And what about in secret? What about in the privacy of his own home? You're asking.
Because it talks about if they
that's
whether you can eat chaylev or whatever.
Yeah. So that's what I'm talking about. I don't know about that, but I do know when he instructs people, when he tells people go against what they're doing. Okay. The one of the interesting things about halacha is that we're not going into people's bedrooms. The Beis Din cannot and will not check if people are keeping Shabbos, making sure that no one's hiding in his basement Friday night at midnight and lighting a match. That's Chil Shabbos, correct? The most Beis Din could do is make sure that there's public order, that there's no one advocating for smoking on Shabbos. We don't know who's committing Gilu Rayos, but we can, try to shut down any place where people gather for Gilu Rayos or people who are advocating for such things, correct? Same thing with Avodah Zarah. Person could have an idol in his basement and he shows up, sneaks down to the basement and starts lighting incense to the idol. As long as he's not going public and doing that, so that the community is safe. We can't possibly check on everybody. So too, I think like the Zakin Mamri, like we said, we'll get to this. I could be wrong. The point of the Zakin Mamri is that he's telling people to go against what the Beis Din says, instructs. That's the whole point. The whole road. And Mora La'atzmo means what? A person believes it and he lets himself do what he feels like. But the point is here, eventually, we have an example of the Korbanot Tzibur of what? He said, Horu Abba Avodah Zarah, maybe kol shevet v'shevet par v'sa'ir. Okay? Apar olav v'asir chatat. If you had Avodah Zarah, every shevet is considered an Am. Right? So if the Sanhedrin of the Am Yisrael did it, so you have 12 Shvatim, so each shevet would bring this. If just the shevet itself, let's say the shevet's based in did this, so that shevet itself will bring this korban. Okay. One what? The Levites count as a shevet in this case.
So
yeah.
So that would be 13.
No, so I guess they count the Ephraim and Manasseh together. There's some halachas. No, there's some halachas you count Ephraim and Manasseh together. How many gemstones did the Kohen Gadol have in his breastplate?
Fine, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's still quite weird for something like this.
Yeah.
Where it's local and it has to do with the based in it's
Yeah.
local to an area.
Yeah. In this case, Ephraim and Manasseh have one joint based in. It's like a joint session of Congress. Yeah. These things.
Enough trouble administrating, and he's
Yeah.
on two sides of the river.
Yeah. Look, apparently they were able to they're up to the challenge, apparently. Next, and the Seir Chatos. Ve'elu Sirim Hein Hanikrein Sirei Avodah Zarah. That's called Sirei Avodah Zarah. Par Helam Davar, that's for all the other Averos. Vim Shagagu Vor Bishar Mitzvos Kmoshe Yitbayer. If their Shagaga, their unwittingness, is all the other Averos in the book, whether it's Shabbos and Arayos, whatever it is, Mivim Par L'Chatos. So they bring one bull, but that bull is a Chatos. For Avodah Zarah, the bull is an Ola and the Seir is a Chatos. And for all the other Averos, it's just Par Chatos. Vuanikra Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. That's called Par Helam Davar Shel Tzibur. This latter one is called the Par of the Helam Davar. What's a Helam? What?
Is something hidden?
Yeah. Yeah. And Chazal use this word to describe a person's state of shkaga. What causes the shkaga? He's in Helam. Yeah. Yes.
Which might be a proof that
Helam Davar
Neach is not actually from Egyptian.
Yeah. It seems to be Hebrew.
Which I think who said that it was? I think Ibn Ezra may have said.
Yeah, there's arguments both ways.
The name
No.
to Yosef.
Oh, right before we left, it was a while ago. Rabbi Klein pointed out. Remember, Avrech is Latin. What?
I still don't buy it.
Oh well, I buy it.
Okay.
Proto-Latin. Why? Dain Abba Malka. Av, that's Abba. Rech, Malka.
There's no reason for that word. For
A
anything.
proto-Latin word to show up in ancient Egypt in the New Kingdom in the
no
negative
reason.
14th century. Yeah.
There's no reason at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No reason.
Rome isn't founded until like 750.
I know, but what were
that's
the
Greek
but the
tradition.
people
It's actually founded a couple hundred years later.
still, but what were they speaking? Those Etruscans who founded Rome whenever they did,
I mean,
what were they
still-
speaking?
Like
No,
your
they
argument is even stronger.
It's not even Indo-European. It is completely unrelated.
Yeah.
Yeah,
When
completely
did
unrelated.
when did Latin, like, even Proto-Latin, show up then? From what? Oh.
Like probably 800, 900 BC. Like
Just out of the blue?
No, all the italics.
Okay.
No, like
They're
there's
different
evidence
people.
that they were
Okay.
descendants of invaders to the region. They weren't
Okay.
like native to there at
See, the
all.
problem is a lot of this is obscured in the sands of time. Okay.
We know, for
Godly.
example, Carthage comes
from the Aramaic.
yeah,
Yeah. Okay.
or like Gades comes from Gadar,
Okay.
words that we have.
By the way, that's what he pointed out. He's not the first one. Like it seems to be that's what Unklus is getting at. But Unklus could be playing a little bit of a retcon there, basically. Okay. Either way, this is what it is. Helem is clearly a Hebrew word. Ne'elam davar. Korbanot yachid hena b'chor v'maser v'pesach. He says the korbanot yachid. Those are b'chor, meiser, and pesach, right? Chagigah v'hi shlamim. There's a chagigah. That's the type of shlamim. Chagigah is the type of shlamim brought when? On chagim. If you bring a shlamim during a regular weekday, it's just a shlamim. The reyahi olot. Okay. The reyah, the person just appearing in the temple on the holiday, that's a type of burnt offering. On holidays, a person brings a chagigah to eat. and the chatas if he owes one, any neders and the davas, and an olah just for showing up. By the way, you could split these with person. Doesn't mean every single person is his own animal. If people can't afford it, they team up, just like a korban pesach. The korban hager. What's a korban hager? Guy converts. He has to bring a korban. It's five in a korban. Well, yeah. V'hu olah min abema. That's also an olah from animals. O shnei b'nei ona, o shtei teremu shneim olah, or two turtle doves, or two pigeons. Both are burnt offerings. O shtei beimot. Two animals. What? Achad olah v'achad shlamim. One will be brought as a burnt offering. The other will be brought as a peace offering. V'hanodero hamitnadev olah shlamim. A person who takes on a vow, promises to bring somehow an olah or shlamim, or to bring these specific animals as olah or shlamim. Ushlamim aba'in im halechem. They're shlamim that come with bread, right? What do you call those? Hinak green todah. They are called a Thanksgiving offering. We bring shlamim with special bread offering, a lot of different bread. Which, by the way, what's the implication of that shlamim? Why is a person who's giving a todah, he brings a shlamim with a lot of bread? What's the shot? Because he's sharing it with a lot of different people. A todah is a person who's celebrating some miraculous, whatever it is. He really wants to thank God, so he goes overboard. So most people, when they give a Thanksgiving meal, basically the idea of a sudat hodaya comes from this idea. Anybody ever made a sudat hodaya?
My high school, they had a
For what?
I think it was the staff and the person in the background and stuff to the school.
Okay. Well, anybody's ever had a reason to celebrate, so you make a celebratory meal, kiddush basically. So you bring bread because you want to give everybody a chance to eat the meal.
Any seal is that?
Yeah. So that's what you do. So you bring a lot of bread with it. It comes with a lot of bread.
But
How much
this
bread?
comes up a lot in Chazal. Like, if they can, if he gets better, then I'll make a Sudat Hodaya.
Okay.
This got better. That happened one time in Brachot. I don't remember which pair, whatever who it was, but that happened.
And like the rabbi recently pointed out, that's how normal people celebrate things. You don't celebrate with a broccoli kugel. You celebrate with meat and bread, okay, and wine. That's a normal way to keep Purim. That's derech eretz. Okay. Korbanos yachid. What do we have here? Oh, we just read that. V'chein korbanot nazir. Well, what a korban? What a nazir brings? He brings a burnt offering and a chatas and a shlamim. The korbanot mitzorah. Person who's now cured of tzaras. What does he bring? Hein a chatat v'ashamu olah. It's a chatas and asham, and it's a guilt offering and a burnt offering. Korbanot zavim v'yoladot. People who have gotten out of being zavim, that's a pretty bad state, and yoladot, women who give birth. Ein chatat v'olah. One is a burnt offering, one is a sin offering. Korban shogeg b'mitzvat lo taseh sheish ba karet. This is what I was talking about before. Korban shogeg, a person who has a shogeg in a mitzvah lo taseh that has a kares punishment. So what is he supposed to do? He brings a chatos. Okay, he's a shogeg in this thing. If he's not a shogeg, he's chayav malchus for this, right? It's only for a shogeg that it's a chatos. If it's a suffix, if he actually did the sin, so he brings an asham. Now it's called a dependent guilt offering. Okay. There's certain averas that the prescription actually is an avera. He actually did it. That's called an asham vadai. Like we're gonna say asham shifra harufa. Shifcha harufa, right? You've heard of those? One of the only arayos that has the specific asham to it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the Rambam talks about that. It's a specific pasuk in the Torah, actually. Good. So anybody ever have any experience with any of these korbanos? Okay, no one. You have an el ha'olah parchatat when these two animals, the Kohen Gadol actually has to bring from his own pocket. Every Yom Kippur, he brings an el olah and a parchatas. That's his. That's not the tzibur's. Okay. Korban yachid. That's a personal offering. Even though it's prescribed, it has to come on Yom Kippur. It's still his personal offering from his money, and he does it himself. Ufar zeh hu anikra par Yom Kippurim. This par that the Kohen Gadol brings on Yom Kippurim, which he says a special vidui, that's called par Yom Kippurim. V'chol ela korbanot meforshim him b'Torah v'chol echad mehen yitbaru dino b'mkomo. We are going to explain each one. They're all explicit in the Torah. Kol korbanot yachid chayav b'achar yutan uv'achariyut niskehen. If you have a korban yachid, a person has achrayus on it. He has to somehow bring it to the Beis Hamikdash. What is the extent that it means? It has to come from his money, and he has to insure it basically. What does it mean? If it goes lost, for example, he has to make it up somehow. And the Nesachim. What's the Nesachim? Niskehem here, like the Rambam is going to say, applies not only to, sorry about that, not only to the wine, but also to the meal offering, to the flour that comes with it. Rambam says Nesachim covers both. Okay? Minchas Nesachim. The mincha of the Nesachim. Sometimes you have a mincha stam, and sometimes you have mincha, the bread that's brought along with the wine. Mincha sam is kehem. So that's called minchas Nesachim. And sometimes the Rambam says Nesachim, he actually is referring to also the meal offering that comes with this. Chutzmin on the dava. And the exception is, like I said before, the nedava. If a person says this animal will be a korban, this particular animal will be a korban, and then what happens? The animal dies. So there's no achrayus because this animal is supposed to be the korban. If he has an olah, he has to bring, or a chatos. A person sinned, he has to bring a chatos. It doesn't matter how many animals end up dying or who steals it or whatever it is. He has to manage to make that korban happen. That's his achrayus, and has to come out of his pocket. The chol korbanot tzibur einon chayavim b'achrayutan. Korbanot tzibur, there's no achrayus on. The tzibur missed, let's say today, there was no korban tamid. There's no makeup for that. There's no obligation on the tzibur to somehow make it up. Or the meal offering or the wine offering that was supposed to come with it, also, we're off the hook for that. Doesn't mean you should, like, some people look at things and they say after the fact, well, he's putter, so he could do it, right? No, putter avalasser. Just because there's no achrayus of the tzibur on all these korbanot that we have missed, it doesn't mean what? That you could just forget about it. Yeah. Well,
I would say, oh, just stop reading the Torah because like he didn't do it.
So there's no statute of limitations. A question on korbanot.
Yeah.
Can you confirm that?
Well,
there's no statute of limitations on korbanot.
Well, we're about to see that there's an exception right here in the next line.
Okay.
Vim karav hazevach, hayavim b'achrit niskan. Somehow, let's say you brought the zevach. The zevach means the thing that's slaughtered. Let's say we did today's sheep, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, but didn't bring the mincha and the nesech with it. So the tzibur has to somehow bring that mincha and wine offering at a later point. It's never forgotten. Once the animal is brought, so there's achrayus for the tzibur.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense? So in this case, there is no statute of limitations.
For a korban yachid.
No, for this is talking about a tzibur. Okay, if the tzibur managed to bring a bull, like one of the bulls on Rosh Chodesh, there's 2 bulls on Rosh Chodesh brought as a burnt offering. So forever they have to somehow find a way to bring the meal offering. Was it? Shlosha esrim lapar. They have to bring 3 isranot of what? Of flour as the meal offering, and a hin of wine. Okay. No, chatzia hin of wine. Shlishit is for an ayil, and revi'it is for what do you call it? For a lamb. Okay. Yeah, it's explicit in the Torah in 2 places. It says here. This is like there's an example here in Parshas Korach, if I'm not
Does that
mistaken.
mean we have to be choshesh that maybe on the day that God we didn't bring them into yet?
I don't know. I think someone record just like we have a lot of traditions. What happened the day of the Korban? They would have said something here. It says here in Shlach. It said Korach. Maybe it's Shlach over here. I'll show you. So it says here's the different minchas and nesefs. It's basically a prelude to Pinchas. It says here you bring an isha al Hashem. L'fali neder bin deva oben moadechem lasot reach nichbach Hashem min abakar min atzon. V'kriva akrikvanu Hashem it costs solat yisaron balul b'rvida shehin shemen. Okay, mincha a solat yisaron mixed with a revi sahin of oil. Yain l'nesek revida hin pasel olal zavach lakeves achad. If it's 1 lamb, so you have yain l'nesek revida hin. Okay, a quarter of a hin of wine for every lamb. La'ayil taseh mincha solat shnei esronim. An ayil, the meal offering is 2 isronot or esronim of meal, and bulava shemen shlishit ahin, and you put a third of a hin of oil on there. Yain l'nesech shlishit ahin, and a third of a hin of wine. And if it's a par, chita seb ben bakar ola azevach, something that comes from the bakar, So that is Hikrival min Bakar Mincha, Solet Shlosha Esronim, 3 Esronim, Chatzia Hin of oil, and a Chatzia Hin of wine. Okay, and that is repeated many times in Pinchas. So that means, but it says here it starts with keves, the smaller thing. Keves ayil par. Each one gets more wine, flour, and oil with its korban. And in Pinchas, it first says the par ayil and then keves. Remember for Rosh Chodesh, what does it say? We're going to read it. What's your offering of Rosh Chodesh? It says the whole thing there. It repeats it. So, and also there's a line in at least Nusach Ashkenaz Sidurim for Korbanos. What does it say? Umin chasam is kim dubar shlosha esrim lapar ushne esrim la'ayil. Yisrael keves v'ayim kisko v'sa'il chaper. Right. So you go over all the different mincha that everything is supposed to have. Okay. Let's see. V'chein korban yachid shekavua lo zman. If you have a korban yachid that's kavua lo zman, hareu korban tzibur ve'eno chayav b'achrayuto. What's korban yachid that is kavua lo zman? Just korban pesach. So there's no achrayus from korban pesach. You didn't do korban pesach last year. Let's say you take on the nedava. If you take on, I'll bring an ola to the Beis Hamikdash. So for your entire life, you have to bring that ola. If you never manage to do it, it's hanging on your neck.
Even if you say I would do so on this day.
If you say it, if you condition on the day, then it doesn't take effect until that day. Okay. So like anything else, conditional. What? What? An adava is when you say this particular animal is a korban. And then if the animal dies, no achrayus. But korban pesach, you have no achrayus. That the korban pesach you were supposed to bring last year, you have no achrayus on that. You have a technical thing of korban pesach sheni, but that's only on under very specific circumstances. Okay, that's not the same achrayus. That's a special case. So there's no achrayus on korban pesach of last year. You missed it. You're not going to bring many pesachim when the Beis Hamikdash is built. Make sense? Okay, but a woman who has a yoletis, she has a achrayus, and every person who's been azov has an achrayus on that. So, and a ger has an achrayus. Every ger has to write down in his notebook what he has to bring as a korban when he gets a chance, and every yoletis.
And also, ask about that.
Well, yeah, every yoletis has to know how many times she's carried a pregnancy at least to 40 days, because miscarriages also count. Yeah, if it ends too certain, usually it ends with 4. When a woman realizes she's miscarrying, that's still considered a case where she has to bring the korban. It turns out a lot of miscarriages happen so early, the woman doesn't even know she miscarried. They just think, oh, maybe it happened so quickly, she thought it was a regular period or just a late period. And you guys will learn more about that later. Okay. Let's see. Kololas behema. Look at this one. This is the 8th halacha. Eina ba ela min azachar bilvad. If it's an ola behema, not an oath, it has to be a male. It could come from the sheep or from the goats or from the bovine, from the cows, but it's always a male. The ola of behema is always a male. Ben gedolim, ben ketanim, whether adult or small ones, it means that gedolim is talking about fully grown animals. An egel is not a gadol. An egel is a katan, and a par is a gadol. A keves is a katan. An ayil is a gadol, and there's a middle stage between keves and ayil. Guys, you've seen the difference? The difference between kesef or keves are the same thing. They're the same thing. What's the difference between a lamb, a young lamb, and a ram? Ayil is a ram. What happens, Yaakov? You seen this? So you look at them; they're actually bigger. A lamb's kind of small. Mary had a little lamb. When they're really young, let's say just 2 months old, they're micro. A kid could pick them up. A lamb, once a year old, a healthy adult man could lift up a lamb and put it on his shoulders. It's like picking up a child. A ram is much bigger. And why are they called rams, by the way? What do rams tend to do? They ram things. Ram is now fully grown and he has horns. And sometimes rams fight with each other or just fight, protect themselves, fight over females. The ram is a fully grown male and it has horns. And it's much different than just a little lamb. So that's what's talking about here. So you can make an olah from young goats or fully grown goats. By the way, a goat is usually a goat when it's young has sometimes the same din as a lamb. For example, korban pesach, it comes from lambs or from goats. La'chatas, though, it's specifically a goat, while certain olahs are specifically a lamb. There's a difference. A full-grown goat also has horns, okay, a billy goat, but it doesn't grow as big as a ram. At least I haven't seen that. You can look around. Usually goats end up smaller than rams. Okay. And if the ola is a bird, it could be a zachar or an akeva. We don't really notice the difference. Well, it says if you bring a pair of birds, it doesn't have to be one is male and one is female. Okay. Chatas chatat ba'ame chameshet aminim ha'elu. A sin offering comes from all 5 of these animals. It comes from bovine, sheep, goats, turtle doves, pigeons, mina zacharim, mina kivot, mina gdolim, mina ktanim. Whether from males or females, whether adult or young. Okay? Chatlas comes from all sorts of animals, including females. And there's a medrash about that. A person's bringing a female lamb to the temple, so he wants to hide the fact. If a person would walk into the temple, let's say, with a nice lamb on a weekday, and he says he doesn't intend to eat the lamb, it's not a shlomim, it's an olah, right? That's usually korban nadava, olas nadava. But this other guy has sinned, so he's bringing a female lamb, a ewe. He's bringing the lamb to the temple, and it's young, so it looks like the male. You have to look, you have to inspect. So he says he covers it up with the tail, hides the fact that it's a female, because if people realize it's a female, they'll know it's not what an olah, and they'll realize, oh, he committed some sort of sin. No, there's nothing to be ashamed about, but there's a way to hide it. Okay. Have you ever studied animals? There's a way to tell. How do you know what animal is male or female? Yeah, the normal way. And it's usually people, and most people don't have animals. You can see cats and dogs, you can tell. What do we see most often around here? Cats and dogs. Do you know how to look? Oh, you had a dog? What? Yeah, so people who've been used to animals can see this right away. Most of us don't think about it, but there's a way to tell. There should be a way to tell, and that's the way they used to tell in Beis Hamikdash times. Cows and bulls look very different when they're fully grown. When they're still just calves, it's kind of hard to tell if you're not trained. Same thing with kittens. Very hard to tell, but when cats get bigger, you can see the difference if you just look. Okay. Hasham eno ba ela mizichre kvasim bilvad. Sorry, achatas comes from all these things. Yes, asham only comes from zichre kvasim bilvad. An asham is always a male lamb. Yesh hasham ba bigdolei means that. Yesh hasham ba min aktanim. But some come from youngins and some come from the older ones. Make sense? Good. Remember all these things. There's a chart in the Makbili telling you all these things. When people used to do this all the time, they were used to this. This used to be second nature to them, the types. But for us, this all sounds very new. And it should, because we have no experience with this. Peace offerings come from kvasim, izim, and bakar. From males and females, if you're going to eat them, but not from birds, by the way. And it doesn't matter how old they are. You want to make a shlamim from any animal, any behemoth that you have. It could be zafir, the keva could be fully grown, it could be a young one, but shlamim cannot be a bird. By the way, you're going to share a bird. How much meat do you get from a pigeon?
Not a whole lot.
Well, it says b'nei Yonah, and the Torah is a fully grown pigeon. Has anybody here eaten fully grown pigeon? How much meat is on a fully grown pigeon? Well, I don't know how much, but it's apparently the way they describe it's like a single serving of meat. Okay, well, serves one. It's like a chicken. How many people here can eat a whole chicken? Well, it depends on the size of the chicken.
I had a friend who almost ate an entire turkey.
Yeah, entire turkey. Okay, your friend, Butler Daito Eitzel Kulam. I don't know. When I was your age, I could eat a lot of chicken. Okay, how much chicken can you eat? Apparently,
if I tried, I'd probably.
We just hit the mark. I didn't realize that. Apparently, birds were single serving, but who eats the chatas ha'ov? The kohen. Okay, and it's only Malika eat, and we'll stop there. We'll pray that we actually get to put these things practically into practice.
We would like to encourage our viewers to share these videos with friends and send in your responses. If you would like to obtain Birkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael or invite the rabbi for a speaking engagement, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.